This is TVA by Jenna, a podcast about real human issues brought to you by Dark Crazy Dark
All right, so this is TVA My Dinner. My name is Sean. I'm here with Andrew and Lynn. This is our official episode 300.
Is it?
So yes, this is it. Why? That's
I love that we've got the original
all the fanfare.
Here.
Well, we were that close
Dawn's still here.
because Greg and Brooks were going to be with us, and we would have had the original lineup plus our current lineup.
Playing the part of Brooks Rumsden tonight will be
that crossover.
Wait, do you want to be Greg or do you want me to be Greg? I can sit and stare into the distance.
It's like, Len, your connection's going out. What's happening? I don't know. I can't hear you.
Just do like I did on The Mandalorian. We'll just take random clips and put them on there and just make it look.
Oh, yeah.
I could probably string together clips of them not talking. For like
put them on both sides here, yeah. Just like, I didn't like it.
Yeah. I'm confused.
I don't understand the time travel.
We kid, you guys.
Funny. It is true, Brooks. Like this Justice League does have time travel in it, so we are missing out on that frank discussion on the
just turning that on and listening to you guys all just try to understand and just like talk about this thing all at once. It was like, I love this. Since COVID, we can't go out to the pub and listen to people pontificate. So that's what we've got. You guys.
Just come. We shoot it straight to your home.
From they're not on tonight, but I don't know if it's a spoiler because we'll see if we get to touch on base with them with the cut, as we're calling it. But from both of their early reactions, sounds like they don't like it. So that'll be a teaser for them in the future, and we'll see how it goes.
This is a fun one for us because we have a long history with the Snyderverse,
and it deserves a discussion. Like
the review, episode 300.
The review deserves a conversation, not like it was fine with a billion context and caveats I need to explain.
Yeah. There's some ways in which this was exactly what I said I didn't want it to be, which is like kind of weird if it's just a longer version of the one we just saw, which it kind of is. Let's talk about just initial reactions then. I guess we're talking about Snyder Cut. That's what we're going to talk about. I was pleasantly surprised by just the experience. Except for some parts that are horribly, I just don't like.
Same. I liked it, but with caveats.
Yeah, but just in general, because we talked about that, is it going to be just more filled in stuff? And it's like, I've already seen, and actually the stuff with Cyborg and stuff was like, oh, this is actually cooler than that. Like when it explains his powers and things, it's like, oh, this is, now there's a billion caveats, and it's weird to get into like every single review's got into like, why didn't they add that to the cut? I was like, well, there's caveats we can get into. This isn't a movie that would be any way successful. This doesn't work anywhere but right now.
This only works because of the thing that it is. And I think there's a larger discussion for this movie because it's really not made. I mean, they're putting it out as one piece to say it's a movie, but they didn't make it like a movie.
It doesn't even work like a TV show either. That's why, we'll get in that. But overall, my overall thing was just to do overall initial reactions. I was pleasantly surprised.
I enjoyed this.
And I have a lot to talk about.
I thought, if this was just a different version of the same movie, which it kind of is a little bit, It is a superior version. Like, all the decisions that he made, I actually thought, well, you vindicated yourself in this because every decision that you made with this same framework of a story were better decisions than what were made for the theatrical cut of the movie.
Yeah, there's a couple tiny bits I miss.
I
like Joss Whedon's writing though a lot of the time. Not necessarily his jokes all the time, but I like his writing a lot of the time.
And he was over ambitious, and they actually had fewer constraints in this version because they could just take a step back and take however long they wanted to cut this grandiose version of this movie, whereas there was a massive time constraint on the theatrical. If they had decided that they were going to push that movie out a year, they would have been much better off.
Right.
But because they could have come up with a theatrical version that was closer to this.
Yeah, or, it's not a great two-parter either, but even doing that would have been something. like cut it in two or something.
A lot of people are bashing on Joss Whedon, saying like, "Oh, all this stuff. Why did he change all this stuff?" There was a lot of studio mandates as well. There was a lot of
they didn't say
going on, and I think that's one of the reasons why I enjoyed this version better, was because it did feel a lot more cohesive.
Yeah,
It really did feel like it was one person's movie, whereas the other one was so totally up and down.
His biggest mistake
that's
was,
because of the process that happened, because of the studio, because Joss Whedon's such a different writer and director, and with his own very strong vision and ego. Which
that's what I was getting to. Is he's the kind of guy, like when he came in Avengers, like the original screenwriters are credited in the writing credits for Avengers, but he basically just threw that script out and rewrote it, and he made Avengers. And he didn't get the opportunity to do that with Justice League, but as much as he could, he tried to put in this new stuff. He obviously didn't like that tone, which we weren't thrilled about either, but trying to fix it by just giving it a much lighter tone didn't work for that movie. And you can tell ego's at work with the mustache scenes, because anybody would have watched those mustache scenes and say, well, it's worth a shot, but that clearly didn't work. And just not put them in the movie. They don't prop up that version of the movie at all, except that they're just scenes that he wanted to put in there. They're not structural. So anybody should have looked at that and said, guys,
you don't need
it. You got to pull that mustache stuff, because it's all awful.
Creepy
and
and
that's
bad.
And that's an ego decision, like to not see that, because I'm sure the studio didn't care whether or not those scenes were there. So that was directorial.
Yeah, you don't need that. I mean, that's what I heard that before, and I agree with that. I mean, I walked out of that Justice League to talk about the old one. It's like, this movie sucks, but yeah, but they have great. It's like Superman was great at the end. It's like that's the one thing that was sort of fun. And I like the beginning intro with that song too. It's a Leonard Cohen song, but I like the little music.
I actually missed that intro.
Yeah,
I
love that song too.
Assumed that was a Zack Snyder intro, because it seemed
and it
like
wasn't
a Snyder movie.
Yeah, so it's like, but they definitely did the wrong thing by. I mean, if I'll say one, they did the wrong thing by getting like another auteur. Basically, they should have just had some like journeyman, like a Marvel does. Like get another every now and then they have. Sort of, but they get people they can work with, and they go, all right, can you come in here and just work with this and make it cut it down?
They ended up spending a lot of
add
money
stuff.
to add all this extra stuff when they already had plenty of material to work with.
Yeah. Just cut it down and be fine.
Yeah. So how much was, I mean, it's impossible for us to say from our vantage point how much was the studio saying this, how much was Joss going, no, I have to have my imprint on this.
I think you could probably make a good 3-hour movie out of this. That's why, because they have so many scenes. Like, I've done things before where we shot a project and then I re-edited into something else, and you're using every bit that you can, and like it starts with those like the girls singing when Aquaman goes like, you could have cut this about 4 minutes ago. It's like and it's like there's so many shots even they get to like, I like the cool the context of the Themyscira stuff, but they're like just so many shots of Hippolyta just looking. It's like just beats and beats and beats that are longer.
Took a long time to just shoot an arrow that we didn't actually get to see her shoot.
Yeah, there's like just so many like reaction beats that go on for about 4 beats, and they could have been about 1 beat. You know what I mean? Like shots are like, but that's not even a criticism. It works with this movie because it just feels like this big languid thing.
We wouldn't have seen that in a theatrical cut of this same movie. That's what makes this kind of a fun.
Yeah, it's a fun, cool thing to see.
They were like, make it as long as you want,
and you can do whatever. You can stop it if you like, So
it's a classic.
Do those extra things.
Right, it's like extended editions Lord of the Rings. That's what that is. It's like those don't work even as movie. Like they have these big long scenes of Aragorn talking about how old he is. I love it. Those are my favorite versions. But they're not. They don't.
I think those work.
They work as long novels. They don't really work as a TV show or a big long.
That's why this is actually really interesting, because it's sort of changing up how we think of what we can put into a movie, or what we can, where we can space it, how we can work with streaming.
This is a movie as TV, because first of all, for some reason, I would like to know the decision that they decided that 4:3 aspect ratio was the director's vision, because I know he didn't like Joss Whedon used 90% of stuff that was shot by Zack Snyder, and it wasn't in 4:3. So the decision was for this version to be in 4:3, and I don't know why. If that was a technical thing,
they just let him have everything. I just think they just like, sure, whatever.
Yeah, but why would he want that?
I don't know.
The only except
they're used to looking
I
at
don't
it that
want people
way.
making fan edits by intercutting Joss Whedon scenes, so I'll
Maybe.
just make this a completely different aspect ratio. It's like,
But
you think I can't black bar the sides?
I mean, it's
Probably.
IMAX ratio. That's what it is. I mean, maybe they're just used to looking at that. I mean, with this one,
Hey,
he's just
maybe.
like, he might have just been like, I don't want to do any, like, this is a cooler format. I like this anyway. We're just going to do it this way. Screw it. I was like,
Maybe. It feels like they did it because originally they were going to break it up episodically. The movie is actually broken up episodically. It has title cards that break up different
Right.
episodes within the movie,
And they don't-
and it
yeah.
watches like TV. Like you think
Yeah.
4 hours. It's like, well, watch it. It's like binging anything on TV. It goes by.
it goes by
fast.
pretty quickly. It
'Cause
does. I mean,
If you want to go to bed after halfway, there's a break point in the episodes. You just stop it, watch the rest. It's
I
like
still-
binging a TV show.
yeah, I still wish I could have. When I watched it, I was like, this is all. I mean, it really just does come together just thematically. I almost think it's the better of all his DC movies. That's what I actually think.
Yeah.
This cut of this is better because it's actually just not offensive in the way those other ones. Even Man of Steel, because it's the origin story, they made some kind of decisive cut, like Kit and Pa Kit and stuff. They're decisive decisions, and of course BVS, we relitigate that. But this has the bad bones of EVS because they have to make up for all. So it has all the same inherent problems. And Superman is just duller in this, but he doesn't. I mean, this is all caveat. Let me say, every one of my caveats is without the nightmare sequence at the end. That's a whole nother ballgame.
Yeah, we'll get to
Let's
that.
pretend that's cut off, okay? I'm not talking about. Let's say I excise that from it. I still think this might be his better one of those because there's just nothing that offensive, that we would go, oh, this is Superman
Yeah.
is a
It's
little
a
boring in
decent-
this, but he's not horrible. And I don't mind the fight scene when he comes up because he's like
I
grumpy.
would kind of argue that everybody's a little boring in this.
Yeah,
And I don't
Batman
mean
too.
that in a
He's
bad
like kind of
thing,
milk toast. It's just very like
But especially
Okay.
when you make a
That being said,
4-hour
I like-
epic out of it, you're like, it seems pretty. It's pretty small to be a
Yeah.
4-hour movie. It's
I
not
mean,
epic
yeah.
in story scale.
I mean, Cyborg is the heart of it because he's the only one any bit emotional about anything going on, and he's not even that emotional that much. There's where his dad dies, and then that's about it. Everybody else is like,
I enjoyed
So-
watching the character dynamics a lot more in this one.
yeah,
Like, I think in the Whedon cut, they put in a bit more
quippiness.
anger between them and grumpiness and
Yeah.
fighting. And it felt like that was just, we need more drama because everyone's boring. But watching this cut, they all just, like you watching people come together rather than fight and be angry at each other for no reason. And then, we beat up the bad guys, so now we're friends.
He kind of went with the Avengers kind of strategy of that,
but
and
it
that
didn't
really
work.
Yeah.
It's funny to say that this is a 4-hour movie, but it's paced better. But it is true because I was watching. I think Screen Crush did a video compare where it was saying why one scene worked for Avengers, and the same scene and the same point in Justice League didn't work. Because that scene in Avengers where they're all arguing over Loki's staff,
Right.
something bad has just happened. Like they're at a low point because they just got attacked and they're all at each other's throats for it, and it makes sense. But the scene in Justice League happens after they all just came together for the first time. They saved a bunch of people. They had a win, and then they get together at the Batcave and they just start arguing over nothing. So
Right.
it doesn't
And
represent
Aquaman
sense
just
on a low
comes in and
point.
yells at everyone. It's like, what are you
Yeah,
doing, grumpy
so
face?
it's just conflict for
happy
no
camper.
reason. It's melodrama in that
Right.
version. This version, the character dynamics do work a lot better. Even
And
the
they
way
s-
they treat
yeah.
Superman works a lot better.
And they still have a lot of the. I was surprised that some of the jokes were, I guess, Chris Terrio, which is I can't believe I'm saying this. Were Chris Terrio jokes because some of the jokes still were in there. I'm like, okay, that's.
Well, it shows you
Well,
that he is a capable screenwriter, but he's obviously a maniac when it comes to story conception.
He just
Like,
he does a fundamental. I was watching a bunch of because all this. I was watching like some kind of Marvel, one of those documentary things, and they're talking about their success. The reason they succeed is because they understand. Like I guess Kevin Feige, maybe let's just say Kevin Feige. He understands what makes these elements so cool and these characters like the essential nature. And that's what Chris Terrio, if he has any, I don't think he should be fired. I'm not even being, he can do whatever he wants to do. Good for him for making all this money off all these movies. But from Rise of Skywalker to BVS and this guy, it almost like they fundamentally misunderstands. He understands like fandom, like what fans would want, but not what makes these characters in a different way. You know what I mean? There's like a surface
Yeah.
level of fandom and not like what makes these characters inherently thematically interesting. You know,
Yeah,
that's
that's
why-
what always cracks me up when they say, "Well, Batman v Superman is very into its themes." It's like it's like, yeah, but it fails hard on themes.
Right.
It's like it's the themes that it's so bad at.
everything
Like
else.
the dialogue isn't that bad in BVS except for certain scenes, and a lot of the individual moments work really well in BVS, but thematically, there's no consistency. No one has an arc that makes any sense, and there is no single theme that drives any of the things that happen in that movie that makes consistent sense. Like, so you can't sit there and say, well, it's thematic
Right.
mythology. It's like, it's not either one of those things. It's attempting to be. Like, Zack Snyder's really good at making something sort of mythologically visual.
Right.
Like it
Well,
looks epic the way they
yeah,
shoot it.
he's
but
great at
the
that.
story isn't necessarily. I think this works, even though they probably won't ever make the part 2. This works better
Probably
if
not.
you see it as a part 1, because you know that part of the epic scale of this was A, that it was the lead into Darkseid, and B, it was them trying to get that future. That future story is the one they want to tell so bad.
that
They'll
was
work it in
shot. Yeah, that was
bite at a time.
that was the addition. That was a new
Yeah,
scene
they
shot.
shot that. They're like, he wants so bad, and I honestly, if you want to give him the money, I'd watch it. Let him make it. What's
well,
the harm? Multiverse.
That's why I can accept this. This is like after we'd seen the first 2 prequels and going into Revenge of the Sith, you're like, whatever's fine now. Just have some cool
Anything
stuff.
I
in
can
it.
take for
Like-
myself, I'll
Like
do
at this
here.
point, I've given up. Like, so this point going into this, I also didn't have like, well, I know what to expect. I've seen Man of Steel, and we like Man of Steel, but now that's soured more than BVS and we've seen these. I was like, I know what he does. This is not my take on all these characters. This is not a normal movie. What he makes is, and it kind of, not to get into like weird political, it ties into all like even toxic people that like him and all the other stuff. He makes very masculine movies. That's what he does. And those are fun sometimes. Everything's fun sometimes. 300 is a masculine movie. Those movies he makes, this is what he always does. And it makes cool and we used to always just say badass. That's what he does to everything.
Yeah.
And that is fun sometimes. And with this, if you just say accept it, that's what this is. It's like a big badass brush. Like, if that lens, it's done well. It's cool.
Yeah,
It's cool.
like, we're not moving into this house. We're just,
But it doesn't
just
have
fill
even-
your pockets with silverware and let's go.
Yeah,
Like,
and
there's
I
some
think
things
that's
we
why
can get
I
here.
enjoyed it so much. Is we've
Yeah.
seen so many of the Marvel movies. We've seen them. They're great. We like that's got a tone. It's got a formula.
Right.
It does everything like that. This was not that.
Right.
And I think to watch a superhero movie that's not that was refreshing.
I totally agree with you. And then my only caveat is to this. I was like, just don't have that with Superman. I wish there was like a Batman movie he did this with. Like Superman's my
This didn't feel like much more of a Batman movie than
yeah. Well,
the
BVS
Joss
is
Like,
a
they put
Batman
so
movie
much
too.
soul
Yeah.
in it,
That's
yeah.
obviously what, because they are so proud. Even I watched the little behind the scene thing, and he was talking about it's like it works so well because the characters are grounded. It's like, but nothing's grounded about these characters in the way
Superman
you're
is like,
representing them
I
here.
mean, Batman is the Punisher in these 2 movies. Like that's
And-
what he is. He's not
and he's
Batman.
in a,
he's the
in
Punisher.
a giant tank.
I know, he's
a
the
ridiculous
Punisher.
giant tank. Like that's not what you're into here.
Oh, they
making
have to
this
show. Yeah,
grounded.
they have to show the Dark Knight Returns thing right at the end. Like, see, we got that tank in there. I was like, man,
It's
you'd
cool,
love it.
But just understand that you're not doing it. Like the Nolan Batman was kind of grounded.
Yeah, those are grounded. My
But
biggest
this is
again.
not grounded. That's not. If that's what you think you're doing, that's not what you're good at all.
And it-
We
and
put a
it's-
grey wash on it. It's grounded.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
See how no one has red on?
Right, and even
Nobody's
like,
wearing red tights, so it's grounded.
yeah, and even like if we weren't even ever having this discussion, I could go, yeah, I like it. It's fine. It's cool. I could walk away and not be pissed. I mean, again, because we were disturbed by BVS, so it's
Well,
like
just like it's literally has like
It's
black
beating me
paint.
down,
It's like,
yeah.
see how much more realistic it is?
it's like
Okay,
why?
black.
It's like because
Like,
it's just
he's
cool.
still wearing
I was like, but in the comics, it had to. That's my biggest thing. It's like it's not because it's like, hey, they did something. It's just like he feels like they fundamentally just do not like Superman as a character. And even in this one, they have great moments during the movie where like it's really about kind of vaulting him up as his character. It's like, oh, I like this. This is pretty good. You're like they're
Yeah.
always talking about how he's great, and then it comes out, and of course, I take away BVS. It's like I kind of like there's cool moments in that scene, but of course, it is him just being terrible and stuff when he comes out and being this thing you have to fear, and that's like the whole dynamic. And then it's like, finally he's good. And then, of course, we get the nightmare thing. It's like, oh, you thought he was good. Wait till he's horrible again. You should always be scared of Superman.
He wants to do the
and if you look at the reason they want to do that, is because Bruce slept with Lois, and that's the baby. I was like, this is why you guys don't understand this. Superman as a character would not go bad if somebody slept with Lois and killed her, because that's what makes Superman different. I was like, you have to come up with different...
that they're going with now is like, I don't know what their original Gonzo script was, just cuckoo bananas and got shut down. Even Warner was like, no, you can't make that movie. Jesus Christ. Like, oh, okay. So this movie, this version of the story they got is the amended version of that. But their concept is that the death of Lois makes Superman, it leaves him open to the...
Maybe, yeah.
What is the... I can't believe I forgot what the
the
anti-life equation. The anti-life equation is Darkseid's like obsession to find this sort of mathematical, physical, mathematical manifestation of pure evil. And that's what he's obsessed with finding. In this movie, part of the expanded lore in the Snyder Cut of this movie says that they've located that on Earth. So Darkseid's interest in Earth isn't just as a normal conquest, it's that he wants to tap into that. And their concept was what they were leading to, is what could make Superman go bad is the death of Lois left him in such despair that he succumbed to the anti-life equation, and Darkseid took control of him. So he doesn't turn bad in that same way. But it's a device. It's sort of like how Hawkeye is bad in Avengers 1, because what the hell are you supposed to do with Hawkeye?
Well, but that's...
That's how they wrote him into the story. They're forever... What we don't like about them is they're forever trying to write Superman out of the story because they don't know what to do with a character that powerful.
It's just every movie is just a negative force, and it's just so the opposite of what... And it'd be different, too, again, we never had Captain America, but we have Lois and Superman and Lois on TV right now. It does it right! So it's like, it's not even that hard to make Superman a source of, like, his drama should be all the stuff he has to deal with, not because his character changes. Captain America's drama is because the world turns against him because he's standing up for what he thinks is right, not because he turns evil. If you're legitimately
interested in, if grounding the characters is what you're legitimately interested in doing, then you have to give them grounded relationships. Like Superman and Lois, he's grounded because he has a family, and that's not the only thing he cares about. But it's another thing he has to take into consideration. He's not just Superman. He has to be a dad, and his kids may end up having superpowers, so he has an added responsibility there.
Because
that's the grounding of the character.
Yeah, that's the fundamental drama of that character, is that something could always be happening. I could be saving somebody right now, or not, you know what I mean? Like, why am I not doing this 24/7? It's like, well, because you're a person too, and you actually. It's not because you could be evil. It's not because people hate you. It's like his thing is so negative. To the fact where we have Pa Kent and the Man of Steel. Not totally turning that, but it's like saying, don't show your powers. Let those people die. Don't worry about it, because people are going to try to kill you or hate you if you do that. And then to the second one, where it's like, do we hate Superman? I think everybody hates Superman. Batman hates Superman. Everybody hates Superman. And then into this, there's like an hour where like, you know what? He was pretty cool. And then it gets back to like, wait, he's evil again. Wait a second. Now he's evil, and he's like he's a hermit. And he comes back for 5 minutes, and then he's like, wait, you thought he was good. He's evil again. That's like, what is this character?
I'll give Zack Snyder this, though. I do think the resurrection scene that he put in there, like
it was fun.
Sort of montage that mirrored Pa Kent and Jor-El and what they're saying. I think that does sort of redeem that, because it solves
his own problem, though. So that's why it's a little shaky in credit.
But it
has Pa Kent going
credit when they redeem themselves.
Yeah, it does have Pa Kent going, it's time now, fly. I was like, yes. I was like, finally. That's like, because he didn't say that in BVS either. In BVS, I don't even understand what he was talking about.
Hey, drown their horses.
Yeah.
God, what happened?
And in this one,
I drowned my neighbor's horses.
Yeah, I do totally love it. I
got a lot of shit going on right now, Dad. I can't be hearing this.
Right, and I love how how his two dads, the message combines in this. So it's totally true. They did great with that part.
And it contextualizes what they're saying as to not be a message of fear, but a message of hope from two different perspectives. Like you understand Pa Kent a little bit more. Like, yeah, he was afraid, but he wasn't trying to tell Superman. I thought that BVS sort of ruined that, because there were some things like we would defend in Man of Steel as saying, well, when you see it from a certain
He's going to learn it. He's going to learn.
But then in
better,
BVS,
so,
you're he's like, I guess no one's good in this world, so I'll murder Batman.
And like, oh, saving people sucks. Like that's what he does.
That's what Pa Kent came back and say, yep, son, do one nice thing for somebody.
I told you.
Lays waste to someone else. That's the way it works.
It's just such. I mean, it's a take on the character, and those are the issues involved. It's just such a negative. And again, it ties into that masculine. It's kind of like this whole. It's real Randian kind of stuff. It's like, this is so tragic because I'm such the hero and you guys are pathetic. And I'm like, I was like, that's not what he's emphasizing though. It's a much more. This is more New Testament. Superman should be more New Testament than Old Testament, really. And that's what this is so much more like. You peasants below me, we should deign to save you. I was like, okay.
Well, and that's the element they're missing. It's like Superman has a love for mankind.
Right.
That's what you always have to see. Even in the old Christopher Reeve movies, it's like his
concern
is when people are about to be hurt. And
this one is just a Lois one thing.
With Zack Snyder, what he does is like, oh, I see. So you don't want all that collateral damage. So we'll just have Superman fight in places where there's no people. Like, well, then there's no stakes. Then they're just wrecking things.
And he's like, well, he does save people. He saves Lois. And I was like, that's the only person if you follow the connection of this, he doesn't care about anybody in this universe except for Lois. And I was like, she has a higher priority, yes. Just like in the Superman and Lois show, she has a higher priority. But he's also, that's the balance. It's like, especially in that show with kids and everything too. It's the same,
Well, and you want her to be the focal point, but
right.
she's the shorthand for his greater love of all mankind.
Right.
But it's not supposed to translate. If Lois Lane weren't here, he would be a maniac. That would be it. He would just be an unstoppable monster. If one person, because the arguments people made were true. It's like in Man of Steel, he was still a good person before he ever met her. He saved people. He did things. Right. He wasn't a monster. So I could see where he would be affected, and you could use that as a narrative tool if something were to happen to Lois. But it's not the deciding factor on whether or not he's a good person.
Right.
He already was.
And I rewatched some of Man of Steel, and he is fine. I mean, Man of Steel's just, it's like not that it's so negative. That one is just less positive, and we're just, forever we're just waiting for the other, but it's still just never. Even in this, that's what I'm saying. Even in this, his character just fizzles. He's like, that's a cool moment when he comes back, and then he comes back and he's like, unimpressive. And I was like, does everything have to be so badass? And I was like, it's fine. Let's just watch this for being badass. It's like, we all sponsor. Everything is like it's awesome looking, and it does get you going. But it's like I don't want to watch. But it's like you don't watch football games 24/7. It's fun to watch football every now and then. It's like a big, fun, violent thing. But it's like. I do agree with you, Linda. I appreciate that it's different. Superman, I was like, I just want a good take on a big screen Superman take that I just haven't seen yet. This is
a take on Superman, but may not be. I liked it because I don't like Superman as a character usually. I prefer the sort of Batman type characters and that sort of thing who are just a bit more dark and gritty, maybe a bit emo. But I felt, I didn't. He was kind of more of a tool than anything in this movie. This was Batman's movie. Batman and Cyborg, and they're bringing people together. And Superman really didn't even need to show up.
I think he would have made it better.
There and they were still. But he was just a tool, and the fact that he came back, and he may have came back as a negative. They didn't play this properly, but it could have been a whole, what have you done, Batman? This could have been a whole Batman is trying to bring him back because he feels insufficient, and that whole storyline could have been worked into it more. It could have been much more about Batman trying to find, because they do try to unravel that a bit, Batman trying to find his humanity again through Superman. But that wasn't really delved into enough to make it a whole thing. And I think that's where they're trying to go in the future, is like, well, Batman made this happen by bringing back Superman.
Right.
Well, if we want to actually talk about that nightmare sequence at the end, one of the things
you didn't think you could hate Jared Leto more as Joker.
I want to give you a reach around.
He was fine compared to his role in Suicide Squad. I think he was better. I did enjoy seeing him. There is a continuity that made me enjoy seeing him come in. But the problem is that
So
You can tell
also
they
have-
brought him in for no reason because they never intended to do that. He just thought it would be fun to have a Joker scene since
Yeah,
there's a
it'd be
Joker
cool.
in that universe he hasn't utilized.
It'd be cool to like just shoot Jimmy Olsen in the head. That'd be cool. They do that. They're like, it'd be fun. Just put him in there. It's like
let's put Martian Manhunter.
All right.
Martian Manhunter was never part of our original vision. But let's put him in this.
Sure.
I didn't
And make
like
him-
Martian Manhunter. I was really excited to see him, but then when he appeared, when Martha turned into him, I was like, oh no, I really
Yeah,
like
it's
that
like,
scene.
why isn't
And now
that just
it's-
Martha's? I love he's like, is that the one of the most human moments in the movie?
Yeah,
There you go.
yeah,
Let's
and
make
it's like
it
those
badass.
aliens.
Yeah.
Like,
Well,
I'm
here's
down with
more
him
man
appearing
muscle.
and helping Lois, but like he could have been any other character talking to Lois and giving her a little boost. But you take away the one human moment between these two women, and he's
Well,
just,
it's also,
I totally just realized that
It's
it's the
there are enough
one.
women in the story as it is.
Yeah.
the only scene where two women are talking and one of them turns out to be a man. It was still
Yeah.
past Bechdel
And they are
because they were
talking about
talking
man.
Talking about
a
Superman,
man.
but
So-
it's the one scene that's not like every other scene. People are talking. It's about stuff and superhero stuff. This is the one thing that was about grief, and it's like the one real drama moment. And they're like, God, this is boring. Let's try to like.
How do we
What would be
set
cool if
this
she? It doesn't make any sense. Why would Martian Manhunter come talk to her about? Why does he need Lois to come back? It doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't make sense
Yeah.
narratively because as a reveal, him coming in at the end saying, "Hey, I like your moves."
We don't know
Maybe
who he
I'll help."
is. Yeah, we don't know what his
But
motive
if you
is.
introduce him earlier, not only does that deaden that as a reveal, but then you're like, why didn't he show up during the big fight? He's like, you convinced me to stand.
Why didn't
Like,
he show up
where
during
the hell were you
during
Like,
BVS and every other? Why didn't he show up during Man of Steel when aliens were attacking the world?
And
And he
we
was
were-
the general.
but-
and why was he antagonizing Superman the
You
entire
can
time too? It's
forgive
like-
it because he never reveals himself in those other movies. But in the context of this movie as a story unto itself, it's like if you started walking around as Martian Manhunter getting involved, then why did you see me put a Justice League together and go fight this alien invasion?
Yeah.
And you're like, sit this one out, still on the fence. And then when it's over, he comes up, like, gets me out of bed to say, all right, I'm
But
in.
he's like-
Who are you?
That he's actually already a character who's active in the universe, so it's not like he's
Right.
just sitting it out for that.
And he also knows
Yeah,
Lois.
it doesn't work
He
as
could have
well.
gone and talked to Lois as
Yeah, he
himself.
could have gone and talked to himself as that character. That would have worked really well.
Yeah.
Because then you could have had that character talking to Lois, have
Because
the
in
dialogue.
fact, they worked together in the last movie. They had many private
They
conversations.
already had a
in BVS,
relationship.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would have worked a lot better. And then when he turned into Martian Manhunter, it would have been like, oh, that character's
Yeah.
always good. That would
If
have worked
he-
so much better.
Yeah, if he turns in Martian Manhunter like to fly away or something, this he turns into that and then turns back. It's like, why are you turning? Is there like a
Like they could have worked that into one of the
Transition.
many scenes where she just goes and gets a cup of coffee. He could
Yeah.
have been there and had a discussion, and they could have kept the scenes with her having the coffee, except changed it up a bit, have something a bit interesting,
right? Yeah.
Yeah.
and still
I mean,
kept
I-
the Martha scene because I liked that one.
Some of
I like
these
that
things
scene.
I felt like, just like the Joker one, like they just did it so they'd have something weird to put in the trailer to say this is going to be
Living in
different. See how we have
society.
Martian Manhunter? It's like, yeah, but you just made him graphic with
It
the
feels like
graphic
it-
team put him in there.
Yeah, it's funny as this is being DC. It feels like they're like he does like in conceptual stuff. Sometimes it's like the old Marvel method of comics, where Kirby then would just make the pages and then Stanley would like fill in. It's like I guess
Yeah.
this happens and this happens. So it's
That
like
is- that
feels
is
like yeah,
sort of
Martian
Snyder's-
Manhunter will be there and other things will be there. Let's figure it out. It's like-
And
And he
it
just pops
bothered
up. What
me
if-
because that Joker thing had been in the trailer, and they're like, "You telling me this is the last scene of the movie, and you put it in the trailer, and the line in the trailer wasn't even
Yeah.
in the scene?"
yeah,
Yeah, no.
It's like, so that's gimmicky.
they're so
What if
funny
he
too.
give-
Yeah,
What if you actually give her something to do, and Lois figures out that he's Martian Manhunter and yells at him for doing nothing? Like you could have so much more interesting stuff than him just popping up and going, "All right, here now."
It's the problem.
Right.
It's been fun to see when they have this much time on the back end to sort of reconceptualize this movie that didn't work. But that's one of the drawbacks. It's like, well, why don't we just put Martian Manhunter in? It's like, but you can't, since you can't reshoot the movie, you just have to sort of rework things that are already there, and it doesn't work fully. That Joker thing was
And
weird
it-
because they actually shot that scene for it.
right.
And I guess the scene where he's talking to Martian Manhunter at the end was probably a reshoot too. I don't know.
I just don't. I mean, again, it goes into all this. Like, I kind of just it goes into all this masculine stuff with these movies and him. Like, and I'm not saying anything about his like personal, like, but it's like it does seem like Lois Lane against characters. Like, you kind of think her character would be actually more active in this. So it's like, hey, I'm denying that I feel this way. I'm denying, and I'm off investigating this thing and this stuff going on, and she's a part of, because she has been part of everything, and it just makes her just kind of like, eh. And even like, I don't like.
Yeah,
I
she's
even
very
like.
active in the first two.
Yeah, and I even
just
like
solving
that
mysteries
moment.
and shit.
And people like, well, I've heard different things. I kind of like that moment, and where he's getting where Batman planned to bring Lois to this thing when he comes alive again. They're like bringing the big guns, and it's Lois. And this is like, oh, she was just wandering around because she just doesn't do it. She's unemployed and she doesn't do anything all day.
I'm a bit of two minds in that, because I like giving Lois more agency. I wish I had given Lois more agency, but Batman is the sort of planner who would bring Lois.
Right, and I wish we would have just seen her off in some other part of the world where he sees her at some point and she's off doing something. Like, I wish she would have been more involved with some sort of like what's going on, but like not. It just a shame for her character. We cutting back to her and she's like, I'm sitting at my house again. I'm like, Lois.
Yeah, like what if Bruce actually brings brings in Lois and is like, oh, you can come and help me find these extra people. You know how to talk to people who are extra powered. You've already proven that you can start a relationship with someone like that. You've got an in on the Superman thing. I can trot out the sad sad girlfriend and be like, she's gonna cry and. You know, like
especially
let her talk to Aquaman and Cyborg.
Right, especially. I mean, they shot this movie and he think he was going to do those other ones, so that wasn't disapproved. So, especially if he's seeding the idea that Bruce Wayne and her have a relationship, how about you show them for a movie working together?
Surely that's
you know what I mean,
on
like
the table. That can't be.
That was
what
though.
They were planning for.
Well, when they
iteration.
shot this, there was they storyboarded it up. That's where they got that from. Jim Lee storyboarded it up with him. They had the whole two.
God, that'd be horrible.
But I'm saying that's horrible. But wouldn't you want them to be like have some sort of connection? Because they have zero connection at this point.
Yeah, they don't seem to like each other at all.
What if they were working together like Diana and him was like
basically?
In this,
it makes more
she
sense
has to stop him from murdering her boyfriend,
right?
And then 10 minutes later, her boyfriend is dead.
Then they're at the funeral together.
At what point after that do you hook up with that dude?
Yeah, and it's just like, and then Superman's back, and so why would
he's rich.
I'm not saying I agree with any of that, but it does seem just
Ben
from
Affleck.
In this movie, things like you put that stuff in there. It's like, yeah, we don't.
That's just garbage stuff. The problem with this movie worked because they kind of just took what they had and tried to flesh it out. Aside from a couple of little things that they just went bonkers with. But their whole problem is they keep trying to do this mind-blowing story where, like, what if? Because if you hear the behind-the-scenes stuff, it is just like Zack Snyder's like, me and Chris Terrio just started spitballing ideas, and they got so excited. It's like, you guys are terrible for each other. Because you're like, what if
like
this
him
happened?
and J.J. Abrams. Yeah, he needs to get with
it. Give them their little platform, put it on streaming, let them do whatever batshit stuff they want, give them a movie. You never know. It might be, it's going to be crazy, but...
Yeah, I think.
What could it do? I'm like, don't give them Superman.
Yeah, they're not terrible at what they do, but they're kind of terrible at other people's stuff. Something that no one's ever heard of. They keep taking other people's
stuff and going, "Oh, I have all these great ideas about it." Give them, make up your own characters, give them a sandbox, go play in that. Something cool could happen.
And we said that before. Like, if you made BVS or a thing like it, and it was analog characters, like they do with The Boys,
right?
And you made up your own characters and they're analogs of these, it would be so fun. Like, it'd still be weird, but it would be fun to watch.
But see, that's exactly my point. It's like, if you want to make... Okay, I just want to go ahead and dive into what makes these characterizations interesting. So if you're going to do evil Superman, what's interesting? Not just that he's powerful and evil. It's like, make him Homelander super interesting because he's evil Superman. And it's like, wow, this guy is screwed up. And it's like, why is he evil? Why is he doing this stuff? It's not just because...
He's not just evil. Homelander is great because he's not
He's
just
disturbed.
Evil.
Yeah, he has issues. Yeah.
You can see where he's come from. Like, you can see he was raised like that. Like, he was raised as a god among men. He was raised... his ego was puffed up and he's super powerful. So he becomes this classic controlling character.
Yeah, but like you said...
a character, not just a powerful evil thing.
Right, and like you said, with the Marvel... We get that. I get this is a different flavor, and I don't want to... Because I don't... That's what's weird. It's weird. It is... You said this earlier, too, Lynn. It's like, it's nice to have this, because it's weird to criticize Zack Snyder for not being interested in this stuff because this is what he does. This is what 300 is. 300 isn't about like this really deep. He has like these very like 5 primary color emotions, and it's like revenge,
And one of them is
like
shirtless men.
anguish. Yeah, shirtless
Yeah.
men. It's like, well, I was mad. My parents died. I'm angry now. No, I like
Well,
you now. It's like very
Shirtless
caveman
Men
stuff.
is his medium. Like,
Yeah.
like whatever themes and stuff like the what he creates from is shirtless.
It
men.
is weird how like in Batman, like
That's
Superman shirt, Clark's shirt came off, but his pants are fine, and his shoes came off. Like, what about his
Just
pants?
to show off his physique.
Like, what are the? Did they get like Docker like endorsement for this or something? That's like he does. When you think about everything else flew off of him, but his pants. It's like, okay, that makes.
I mean, I wonder if they had let him, he probably would have taken the pants off too.
Yeah, it's like full naked Superman. That would have been.
Probably just,
Yeah, let him go off the chain.
Why is Superman naked? Why is Superman naked?
Yeah, that's like we haven't seen a full on
So-
naked man fight in a Zack
I want to
Snyder
see
movie.
this super dick.
So I mean, it makes
Yeah,
these
why not?
it makes these things like big budget, almost like like because it's like they're fun as watch. I mean, outside of any kind of contextual what you care about the characters,
I don't
he's
mind
great.
about the shirtless men.
He's great with the action. Like he's great with, and to his credit, because at the same time I watched I must have been on YouTube. I watched the Marvel. They talked about Marvel's previs stuff, and they showed like how much previs every Marvel movie is. Like 3 years before, while the script's being written, before it's written, they're like a lot of these moments come from that previs company. They named the company. That like that's why Joss Whedon, that's why Russo, all these directors come in and give input, but the action can be so consistent and cool and like. But if you watch the behind the scenes of this, like I watched a lot of behind the scenes of the Justice League, he's planning out choreography and like shots. Like he's done previs. I mean, they must have previs some stuff, but for the fights and stuff, he's there like with them,
Yeah, drawings
hands on working it
storyboards
out.
and
Like
stuff.
I give
This
him
is-
totally credit. He's such a he is a visionary as far as visual for this style, not for other but for this crazy, Atlas Shrugged style. Like this is
The
what
shirtless
he
men stuff.
does.
In
You know what I mean?
slow-mo. I mean,
do have to
300
give
really,
him-
really was the perfect movie for him. The
Yeah, for
shirtless
real.
men in
Just an
slow-mo,
army of puffed up testosterone.
Yeah, and 300, yeah, and that might be my favorite of his movies. Is his complete
Yeah.
vision? It's great. It's really great. I think
And it
it's-
is just like, oh,
it's
you're,
pure
you're
testosterone.
physically weak.
But
Yeah.
it
We should have
works
thrown
really
you
well
off
in
a
the
cliff.
context because that's
Right.
what the Spartans were about.
Yeah, like he should make
Just
movies
works.
about badasses because he makes badass movies.
Just make all the Spartans movies.
Like he should make a Punisher movie. That's what he should have made or something like that. Like.
Yeah.
I mean, it wouldn't have worked because those Marvel characters are a little more. But, like, I get it because his whole take is that the DC, these are gods.
But
I
there's
was like,
plenty of characters. Like, you don't have to go either Marvel or DC. There's plenty
Right.
of characters out there. There's plenty of stories out there he could have grabbed. Like 300. If you wanted to grab someone else's story. Or just make your own shirtless men story.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like he could have.
I mean, just take that stuff that you like and
He
use
could
it as an
then-
inspiration
yeah.
and come up with your own.
Superheroes are
thing
so
for it.
mainstream now that you can just come up with your own vision for what a superhero can be. And we all know what you're on about.
Yeah, we don't need
Yeah.
that. That was working against him to have that built-in audience. If you had just done
Yeah.
it as its own thing, yeah, that's a real shame. But
so,
what
we'll
you
see.
think?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, overall, again, I think it was. I enjoyed it, and I'll watch it more. Like, because, like, yeah, it's fun. It's for what it is. It's really well done for what it is.
was
If you
fun.
accept all those things that we talked about, it's super testosterone, and like this taking this character, accept it or not. If you accept all that stuff, forget about the last scene in Manhunter. It's pretty like it's fun to watch. It is
And this-
fun to watch.
It's the best version of this version of the film.
Yeah.
Like, it's the best iteration. If this was the
And
way
it's-
he was going to do it, this becomes a watchable version of,
Well,
of this movie.
And it's his most it's his best version of his vision of the DCEU or whatever. Whereas like some of those, like even Man of Steel, like story wise, the movie kind of falters. And I was like, this is fun. It's a good story. It's fun. These characters, we meet them. It's kind of interesting, cool stuff. Don't look too much. It's just like the timeline. Talking about time travel in Marvel. Don't look too much into it. Why, like, I mean, Cyborg's like, he helped that lady, and it's a great moment. It's like, don't look too much into it. Why isn't he helping everybody and changing the whole economic system? He just said he could do all these things. That's cool. That's the thing you have to do with Zack Snyder. Is like, what a cool power he can do. He's very powerful, and I love that kind of level up of Cyborg in this. Just don't question why he isn't using that for any other reason or helping with that in any other side,
Yeah.
later on. It's You don't worry about
Well,
that.
it's
That's
also
like,
weird if that's his mindset. Why is he fuck the world? And you're like demons are gonna destroy the world. Fuck the world. Like, but you're helping ladies like get unevicted. You're like, it's not gonna do any good for her to pay her rent if Darkseid's gonna tear her building down.
yeah, it's
So
just not,
you can't care about the one and not care about the other. Sort of like Spider-Man in Infinity War. It's like, well, if they're wrecking the whole world, I can't just be the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man because there has to be a neighborhood.
right.
So if sometimes I got to climb on a spaceship, get out of my wheelhouse for this sort of thing. That's
Right.
sort
That
of
being
the
said,
problem.
it does kind of track with the sort of moody teenager vibe that he has for most of the movie. He just needs it. He needed a bit of parenting, like because that is
Well-
something that like if you got issues going on, you can consistently care about like one person. Sometimes it's easy to care about one person, but not everyone.
And he
You just
does
don't have the
mature
mental capacity
finally.
to go for everyone, and he gets to that level.
Right. When his dad dies,
also
when
he
he's
was being
taken
a bit
away.
of a moody teenager. Fuck the world. I hate
Yeah.
it.
But his dad dies, and he's like, "Oh shit, I shouldn't have been an asshole to my dad this whole time." It's like, "Oh, that sucked." He was like,
It's
helping me.
like
But-
superhero 101.
Yeah,
Yeah, we know how
Everybody
that is.
has a parent issue in this movie.
yeah,
Because they're all as grounded as they're all supposed to be. They do have this sort of just built-in kind of teen melodrama.
yeah. Well, that's
Even
the level.
though
That's
this version of it seems to have less than the way the Whedon stuff played out, but it's still the same problem. Like
yeah.
they're all just kind of flexing assholes.
Well, the way they're actually literally, set out. This is what the level of emotional depth of this is. It's like it's like a CW kind of thing. That's just really badass. So it's like, yeah, this is fine.
Yeah,
it's like,
very visually compelling. So Aquaman is actually the best character for this group because he's the one when you think, I
Yeah.
love Jason Momoa, but you think, oh, they really went with the testosterone vote for Aquaman
Right.
and the scenes like in the trailer where he was like drinking a bottle of whiskey and throwing it in the big waves.
And he
and
never
stuff.
wears a shirt.
And he
Right.
never wears a shirt. But he's actually the most fun and most lighthearted of all of the characters. He's the one that I have the most fun with,
right.
seeing him in that role and the way he interacts with the other characters.
Well, him and Flash is probably second, and then I like him. Like I love that. That's a funny joke. That's not in the original one, or the other one with Flash and the hats. And he's like, "What's option A?" He's like, "No." He's like, "B." He's like, "Let me see A again." Like the way he plays, it's a dumb on paper. It's like it's fine. It's like a very standard
I
joke,
think
but
their
the way they
interactions
play
felt
it,
less awkward.
right? And I love the scene where there's a moment there we don't get, which is also and like I love the kind of more anti Snyder scenes where they're digging up the body, but then it goes to Aquaman and Diana talking about, like they you don't get that perspective
people.
before. They're both like royalty that kind of ran away basically, and it's the same sort of thing. Like they have the same
from
story.
warring tribes of people. Yeah.
Although it's pretty bad when you break all this stuff down because I'm like, wait a second. There's lines in this movie, and I don't know what was first and what was not, but it's like we've gotten to like peak superhero saturation, where like in-game lines like "Let's go get that son of a bitch," like that's from in-game. Like there's like a billion of these lines together that there's no way they could have known because they didn't see that cut, but all mixed and matched. Even the characters themselves are basically all kind of like tropes for the same character. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like Thor is Aquaman, basically, right? Batman's Iron Man, Flash is Peter Parker. They even have a damn Peter Parker and Spider-Man's, Tony Stark scene.
Yeah.
That scene is the exact same scene, almost note for note in a weird. Except for there's no depth in this one. Whereas in the Marvel one, they go, "What do you want to do?" And he's like, "Well, think bad things happen. I'm the one that like." There's a real emotional
Well,
moment.
there's
He's
no
just like,
humanity.
that
like, the
rubbish
first-
brunch joke.
Batman just tries to
Yeah,
murder
it's
him,
true.
and then he has like a big effect scene, and they're like, "Okay, cool, let's hang out." Whereas
Like,
in,
I need
in
friends,
Civil War, when Iron Man goes to talk to Spider-Man, it's a very like character-driven.
Whoa,
emotional
and it's a
scene.
refusal of the call that's interesting because he has to kind of talk him into it, right? Like he wants to go do that, but then he's like, "All right, come on."
But he
Right.
explains Spider-Man in a couple lines of dialogue better than like
Yeah.
the two movies that had come before him. Like of just saying, like you want to talk about economy of screenwriting, where he just like, let me explain to you what Spider-Man's all about, and like, oh, and then
Well, that's
because
why-
he says that, you can see Tony's like, oh, this kid is the real deal.
Right, and that's why from a classical, like, if you were writing this or critiquing, if we want to critique different scenes, that's where you would hit upon something to do with his dad, Flash, in that scene. like because Batman's kind of invaded his vulnerable space or this thing he's in his inner like. So it's, in the same way, it's like what gets you up? What gets you out of that twin bed in the morning? Like Tony Stark says to Peter, it's that same thing. It's like, why are you doing this? Because it is it's interesting how Tony's asking those questions, like a screener question, like, are you like a crazy person or do you want to come help? And Bruce Wayne's like, you got powers, just come on. I don't really know who
You're
you are.
strong.
You could be a
That's all that
maniac.
matters.
You could be a maniac. I have no idea.
I just need to know how you look without a shirt.
Yeah. Not so good. We'll just keep his other
exactly.
stuff on then.
Let's see
Yeah, he's the
those
only shirtless
pecs.
one that keeps his shirt on.
I'm pretty sure he's going to look good without a shirt, though. Like, just from his physique.
Yeah.
I'm sure he's pretty wiry.
I mean, most of those Hollywood guys, it's like part of the biz now. You have to look good without a shirt.
For no reason.
But yeah, that was fun. I mean, his stuff was. I mean, his ending
I like
thing.
the Flash.
Yeah,
I
the
like
ending.
that. I like that the ending felt a lot more rounded as for character arcs. Like
Right.
everybody got something to do in the ending. There wasn't like Superman turning up and making everybody's job
Right.
negligible.
It's funny
Like,
because the ending
Superman,
felt.
in the
Yeah.
original one, Superman just comes and like everybody could not be there. Nobody needs to
Right.
be there. Whereas in this one, everybody had their part to play. Everyone had a thing to do. And
It's
it was
ironic
Really
it-
cool. That bit with Flash was one of the coolest bits of cinema.
Right.
that
It's
we've
ironic because it feels way
Yeah,
more.
that was a
Aven-
really awesome sequence.
It feels way more Avengers like the way with the way everybody does get a hit in and everybody does like have a moment, and then it goes from Flash's moment into Cyborg's moment, which is cool. And Superman has to come back, and then finally Aquaman is the only one up to that point. Like he just keeps getting slapped around this entire movie. Like Superman slaps him around, and even that if you watch that fight. Diana's like boom, 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 and he just slaps Aquaman when he fights with Diana. So like Aquaman is like he tries, he hadn't got to hit it, and finally at the end he like skewers
There's
him
no
like
fish here to talk
thank
to."
you, yeah. He's like finally sort of does a big blow at him at the end. You're like finally, all right, man, you got
What I
it.
like about it
Something to
too,
do.
and the emphasis on Flash and his powers and all this stuff, like a lot of it's setting up the Justice League Part 2 that
Flashpoint
we'll probably
stuff,
never
yeah.
see. But yeah, that stuff does
We are gonna
roll
see that.
directly
They-
into the Flash
yeah.
movie.
They're making
So
that too.
that's Warner's has an investment here. They're like, yeah, we think that this is something that will be good for HBO, but this will actually help us set up that damn Flash movie.
But it shows you that's what I just wish Zack Snyder he needs to get stronger. Like I mean, again, not get. I don't want. This is fine. Everything's great, but this is a moment where the writing and his actual filmmaking matches. Where it's a great character moment and it matches the power, but it matches like emotionally what can be done. When he's like a great visual, it's like the visuals on the thing are amazing looking, and there's an emotional moment with Barry. He's like, oh, they mean. It's more emotional. I feel like because we've also seen the TV show so much and all this stuff. But, like if we are just Flash dry, we might not care about that as much. But I think some of the does some of the emotional underwork of
Yeah,
that
where
scene.
you just think, run, Barry, run.
Yeah, and it's
'cause
like, oh, you're
the
like,
TV
yeah.
shows are like, yeah, now we're getting
Because they don't
somewhere.
do a lot of work. Like I said, they don't do it in that one scene. He doesn't mention his dad again until that scene. So you're like, okay, it worked. But the way that moves into that, all that stuff, it makes it. It's so well done. It's just so well done when the story matches what Zack Snyder can actually do with the visuals.
Yeah, so I think, I'm pretty pleased overall with the movie. There,
I mean,
it had the same problem with not just what they had at the end, but the fact that BVS was like this. It's like, just pick an ending. Whichever ending you want to run with, that's your ending. Or learn how to make a stinger.
yeah, and
Like,
BVS,
if you want to have 8 endings, then you need to have a midpoint stinger.
Well, he was
and
trying
an
to be like Lord of
end
the
credit
Rings.
But you
Well-
can't. But they
well-
don't. See, the Lord of the Rings is not ending a bunch of times. It's just a long sequence at the end, and not
Yeah.
even nearly as long as in the books. But
Yeah.
but in this, it's like, okay, this is because they even broke it out like this is our epilogue,
Right.
and then the epilogue has like 3 parts that are
You could've
disparate.
just
They
lost
don't
the
have
epilogue.
anything.
It was fine.
You have to show us the Lex Luthor scene so we can introduce Deathstroke, but who cares?
for a movie that's not going to happen, you're like, well, that's the setup for the Batman movie that Ben Affleck was going to write and direct, which is not going to happen. So
the
it's
only
like, well,
reason you can include it here is because that sets up Deathstroke, and then we see him working.
and it's so
with
funny
Batman.
because that's literally
Who
how
cares?
this Spider-Man ended this past year. It's like that's how Far From Home ended. So it's like all these movies again are like combining into each other. Like, wait a second, which one am I? The teasers are the same, and the other stuff is like, okay, well,
Well, that was a
Yes.
dumb. Even setting up a Batman movie, that was a dumb thing to say that Lex Luthor's just going to tell everybody. who Batman is, and that's going to be his deal.
Well, that's also dumb that it's on the sand of we don't even know how he knows that Clark Kent and Bruce Wayne are who they are in BVS.
Well, how come everyone doesn't know? I don't have a problem with that. Lex figured
He's also
it out.
in the
I don't
park and
see
everybody's
how
calling
are
him
these
Clark.
guys concealing their identity from anybody?
Yeah, everybody's calling him Clark in that park with all the soldiers and everybody around. They're like, man, don't call him that.
Yeah, Wonder Woman's
Guys.
like, Kal-El, come on, guys.
Yeah.
At least call him Kal-El.
I love when they do. We didn't talk.
No.
They do that moment on the Superman and Lois show where they're like, they kind of hand wave that a bit, and it's kind of hilarious. Just as like, all right, well, I guess because we're the kids. He tells the kids, "I'm Superman." And he's like, "No, you're not. We've seen Superman." Then he goes, and then there's like music plays and stuff. And they're like, Superman. I was like, but they do it well enough. And then you're like, is that what? Okay, well, who cares? That's like
One thing they do in the show
one of
that's
the
really
things I liked
funny.
in-
I guess they have a muscle suit for him because
They do,
he
they
is a
do.
pretty bulky dude. But when he's Clark, he's so
skinny,
lean
yeah.
looking, and then when he's Superman, he's so beefed up looking.
yeah.
So he does have more of a presence as Superman than he does as Clark in the
Yeah.
TV show.
I kind of like that though because it makes more of like a.
Just do like Christopher Reeve, where he did the whole body language thing.
And
well,
he does
yeah.
that a little bit too. He
Well,
does
Henry-
pretty good Clark in
That's
the
what-
show.
Yeah, you can't. Yeah, if you go back to Man of Steel and like that guy in the bar that's like teasing Clark when he's working as a waiter at that place, that guy is like a shrimp. It's like it doesn't matter if he had superpowers or not. Henry Cavill's huge. I
Yeah,
won't
he
be
didn't look
picking on this
unassuming.
guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's like this guy could like
His
squash
shirt
you
was,
without
unbuttoned
powers.
down to here.
Yeah.
I did like that
this.
though at the end of it when he walks in to the Daily Planet and he's just like, "This is Clark," and she just looks at him and she's like, "Oh yeah."
Yeah,
Like he doesn't not know who it is. She's not like,
Yeah.
"Who's this hot new stranger?" She's like,
Yeah.
"Hi, Superman." Mm-hmm.
Well, this is a good time to talk about some of the things that the Snyderverse really did well, and one of them was in that Superman movie. Like, Lois Lane finds Superman because she tracks him down. Like, the very first thing she does is uncover the fact that he's Clark Kent. Like, that was such a refreshing idea. Is like, she's the world's greatest reporter.
Right.
And that's the easiest way for her to be introduced to him as a character. And the same thing with Batman. His relationship with Alfred is better in these movies than in any of the movies ever. Even in the comic book, like Alfred, like they work together as a crime-fighting duo.
he says in this, he's like he works.
They-
He's
they
like Alfred, I
really
work for
have
him.
But you know, Alfred's not
really have the
walking around with a
dynamic of,
feather
like,
duster.
A butler
Mm-hmm.
though, they kind of had more of the dynamic of gay lovers. If we're
Yeah,
gonna do
or he's
something
making
like
Yeah.
coffee and stuff. I usually
That's
make
kind
the
of what it
tea.
felt like.
Well, that's what
Oh,
funny.
okay.
That's what real quick. Speaking of
Well,
gay-
there's something. It's Zack Snyder. There's a lot.
Speaking of gay lovers, I think it was funny that I saw somebody critiquing that nightmare scene, talking about like the sort of dynamic between Joker and Batman is that there's like there's a weird homosexual tension between.
Well,
at least
he's
with
saying it
Joker's
outright
side.
in his
and then he's
dialogue.
like, "Don't give you a reach around. I'm gonna fucking kill." Like all their subtext is just out in the
Yeah.
open. It's like, what are we doing here? It's like
Everybody else in that scene is like, this
it's like,
is getting
ooh,
weird,
this is-
right?
Yeah.
You said the unsaid stuff out loud.
Yeah, it's like
Kinda ruins it.
Like John Cena in that Amy Schumer movie, The Trainwreck. Where
Yeah.
her boyfriend, he's always like, "I will enter you," like everything he says. It's just like supposed to be a badass line.
yeah.
But I just like that. I will
Yeah.
enter you. Like what?
But I liked
Yeah.
Alfred. I liked the dynamic they had. They did work really well as two characters together who've been working together for a long time. I like that Alfred would stay the voice of reason, which is what his job always is.
Yeah, I love the it's
Yeah,
I'm
he's not
just such a-
drawing a bath for Bruce and like cleaning the house. Like
But
that's the front, and the real
Right.
deal is that they fight crime
He's
together.
making
and
the
it's
stuff.
really well established
that he's
in
like
the Snyder version
Right.
of those
Yeah.
characters.
He worked. He says even, "I work for this guy." Like,
Yeah,
but he's like,
the brain.
well, he's obviously like ex intelligence, like he's that kind of storyline. That's what he feels like in these movies. Like,
yeah,
I
like
do
in
though-
Gotham, he was like an
I'm-
ex like spy, and that's why he was there to sort of